Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet B
Presents.
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 16 of Cult and Culture. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Luke Hinshaw.
This episode features a friend of ours, Heather Galipo. Originally, I kind of figured out her stuff, her work, through her involvement in the band Egrets on Ergot. And like when I say weird, that's like one of the best compliments. But that band is pretty weird, and they have no. It's one of those bands where you watch and you're like captivated, and there's no weak links, and it's all each individual player is pretty on their on their own level, just interesting and so she also started singing for a band called Prissy Whip, which is in the real legit weird realm of music. And I already liked the band before she joined, but once she joined, it definitely propelled that into something on its own, just I don't know, like bizarre type no wave music and stuff.
And we got to play with them.
Yeah. And so Planet B did. And so the thing is, I feel like obviously Heather's, who's also known as Crow Jane, which is her solo moniker, is pretty talented musically, but also like as a performer, she puts on a show, and that's I think that's pretty important, especially when I can only imagine, and I can relate like to something like Prissy Whip, where it's like, in the realm of what we do, or something like, the Locust or something, where it's not like very mainstream or commercial, and so you have to kind of captivate people in some way that aren't, that are kind of thrown off. So anyhow, I think she's an awesome person, awesome artist, and multifaceted, because she also does like makeup stuff for film and TV, and that's all also beyond me as well. The level of stuff that she does. I mean, if you look at it like on some of her social media posts, there's like
amazing
people with like huge gashes and blood and or aliens or whatever. Yeah. So anyhow, I thought it'd be cool to get her on the podcast and dive into all the things that she's working on. Also, we were lucky enough to have her on a Planet B track from the album that we're working on, upcoming album that we're working on. So it made sense. She made the trek down from LA. We knocked out this podcast and recorded some vocals and dove into all kinds of stuff. Without further ado, enjoy yourselves, or don't. Cool. So I would like to ask you first about your musical resume, because it's pretty eclectic, and I don't know. Because you tried out for Def Club and it was awesome, but I wish you tried out now, because now I think we're in a better place. But when you tried out, I feel like your knowledge of music was it seemed like your playing was like very I don't know, like almost like Sonic Youth or something, like very like effecty, kind of like, and I don't know where you get your inspiration from or your influences from, musically on guitar. And I saw it in Egrets, like when you would play, like, whoa, this is the weirdest shit in the best way, because I love that band. But I would, and also it's a pretty unique band in itself, in my opinion, because of the sax and the instrumentation in the band. But I was wondering what your jam is and what you grew up with to make you the guitar player that you are, and then we can talk about the vocal stuff later, because the Prissy Whip shit's pretty far out there too. in the best way. I mean, that's the stuff. So I don't know, like how did you become the guitarist that you are?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's anything like as a kid that I was like listening to necessarily. I've always loved the blues, and I think that has some kind of like deep-rooted inspiration in all of my music. But I think it was more so, and punk of course, but and especially on the punk side of things, that's like I took some guitar lessons, but they were kind of whatever to me, and at the time, like I wish I cared more about it than I did then, but like at that point in time, I think I just wanted to, I don't know, like go mosh or something. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, so, and with the guitar lessons, you learn the most like basic shit, and there's rock and roll and stuff like that. And I knew like, power chords, and loved more like I feel like I'm like a feeling and an emotions based musician than I am like a like mathematical music theory musician. So even like when I fuck with pedals, like it's all like sensation and noise that I like a lot. And I think that when it comes to like weird noises that I like a lot, like I pull from like The Residents. I really liked The Residents. I was like a Residents nerd and like Tuxedo Moon and stuff like that. Are you familiar with Residents?
Yep.
Like off-putting weird music is, and I feel like I've always liked that.
So like finding melody and sound, not necessarily like the notation.
Yeah, and that's like why I have so many pedals and stuff like that too. Is like because I like to like with bands that are my own personal projects, I get kind of just bored with like, you know, playing power chords and things like that I like foreseeably are just like the things to do. And I feel like a lot of us, like you, me, and friends that we have all sort of have this part in us that like to like, how do we break the code? You know what I mean? How do we not go by the grid and like bend the rules and do kind of weird shit to like keep it lively and interesting, maybe for us and for other people too, you know? And there's like a whole clan of music nerds that also appreciate such things. So, you know, with all the pedals, I just want to like pitch shift and do things that are interesting. And so The Resonance is one, and Roland S. Howard, do you know who that is?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Was another major guitar influence. And it wasn't until playing in Egrets. At the time, I was kind of playing guitar, but not really. And it was Adam, actually, the singer of Egrets, liked the fact that I didn't really play guitar all that much. So he was like, would you want to be the guitar player of this band? And I was like, sure. So it has like the same sort of like germ story of like kids that, you know, a bunch of people that play music and they know a lot of music and they know about it, but they don't really know how to play their instruments, get in a room, and what do they do?
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool when you start that way because you're thinking outside of the box, I think.
Not like a guitarist would think.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, I'm trained for this instrument. This is how you have to do it.
Yeah, like I just walked out of MI and now I'm going to go be in a band, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like whenever I would see, no offense to anyone that went to MI, but like whenever I would like go see bands from like people from MI, I'd be like, this sucks, you know, whatever. It's like, yeah, it's like too contrived. It's, you know what I mean? Like,
I wonder like if, you know, like the world of John Zorn or something, like where does that guy fit in, you know? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think he is fucked up and also educated, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, you got both of them somehow.
yeah, like that happens. And I think like usually what I feel like when that happens, it's like usually super genius. Like I even feel like Eno does that, you know what I mean? Like, and Danny Elfman and stuff. It's like there is, and even Daniel in Egrets is a good example of that too, because I think Egrets kind of woke up this part of him that's like, okay, well, how do we kind of fuck this up in a sense? But he also has all this knowledge of like the grid and music theory and noise music and stuff like that. So he could break the mold, but then when you want to have the moments of like that have more of like, are more melodic or like fit into, you know, the grid or whatever, like you could have that too, and then it's a good like mashup of it. And so I feel like when he joined the band, it kind of graduated to a new cool level where before it was kind of like a beautiful mess.
Weird and educated then.
Yeah.
Because I wonder if the people that get the proper education of musicianship, if they get it before they discover strange stuff or art or avant-garde stuff or whatever, if they get the education first, then they're put off from that.
Yeah.
Because they think like ultimately, like, oh, that's wrong, or like that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it could be uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like if you kind of started doing that, that is where you're comfortable. So it's almost like for me, if I'm jamming with like a bunch of people that are like really into music theory, I'm uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'll just, like, want to feel it and do some fucked up weird shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, they're maybe like, what? Or even, like, when I record with Paul, what I notice is a lot of, like...
Wait, Paul
Rossler.
Yeah, okay.
Like, he says a lot of the notes that I go to are either, like, the harmonic note or, like, the jazz note.
Yeah.
So he would always, like, kind of kiss my butt about it, which I was in the way that he was, like... He was like, he calls them the Heather notes, but he loves it.
Yeah.
but he's someone that comes from like being classically trained. So
Really?
yeah, he's a classically trained pianist.
Oh.
And then but then he, got like into punk rock
Yeah.
and got to be in the Screamers
Yeah.
and played synths. And I mean, his music now is weird too, like he likes to mess around with noise and stuff like that, and like not have songs that are like, the measures aren't super consistent and stuff.
So when he was talking about your delivery or whatever you were recording, it was your vocal that was weird, or like just everything was weird?
Well, everything, but like, I mean, specifically, like the Heather notes come from like the guitar, or like if I were to play keys on something or something like that. Yeah.
When you said Paul, I got confused because Paul Christensen from Qui,
Oh yeah.
he teaches music.
Yeah, he
and
does.
I don't know why or how. I mean, I'm grateful that I got to do this because he was doing vocal lessons. I asked him if he'd teach me vocal lessons.
Yeah.
I think it like had to do with Dead Cross stuff because Mike Patton kept asking us to sing backups, and I was like, fuck, man, I don't know I don't know what I'm doing, and so I went to Paul, the other Paul, and it was crazy because I was like, okay, dude, I like if you played a note on a guitar, if I didn't see what you were playing, I probably wouldn't be able to call it out. I'd just be like, I don't know what that fucking sounds like. I mean, if I could try to find it on my own,
Yeah.
but if you just played it, I wouldn't be like, C sharp. I would have no idea. So anyhow, I don't know what I was singing to, but he had me sing to like, I don't know, like Beatles songs or something, and he was saying like, you're finding like okay, I'm not musically trained, so maybe you could correct me, but and you probably know from recording me more and stuff too, but he was saying that I was always singing it like on like a fifth note or something, so it was like, it wasn't like the obvious harmony, it was a little off, but it worked, and he was like, you
Yeah.
always do that, and he was like, that's crazy, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but he was like kind of psyched on it, because I think
Yeah.
trained people just go like, it has to be like
Yeah.
this, and I was like, I don't know, it sounds cool, like this other fucked up thing.
Yeah.
And so I wonder like the order of how people learn things, because all the greats, you think about like, again, like Residents, like how did they come up with that, or like Ronaldo and Loaf, and and then also too I wonder about like Residents, like I feel like maybe a lot of it had to do with the timing of things, because
Yeah.
and this is no disrespect to the Residents, but like at the time they kind of seemed like the poor, not poor man's version, because that means that they're not as good, but like the literally like poor version of like maybe Devo.
Yeah.
Where they were just kind of like, I had this junky gear, and it sound, because if you listen to some of that Resident stuff, it sounds fucked up and weird,
Yeah.
and you're just like, wow. But that's also what created their own sound, and
Yeah.
So I wonder, like for me and a lot of my friends, like growing up kind of poor and not being able to have like really nice gear.
Yeah.
Is cool, because then you
Yeah.
end up making shit out of like broken stuff.
Yeah,
like-
exactly.
Like this, like Luke, all the shit you were telling me, like he would go to the swap meet for like DJing and stuff, and like get like the broken records and the stuff that people didn't want, to like sample jacked up
Yeah.
stuff. Where like the trained
That's
people.
how I feel is with junky gear, you have to work through it.
Yeah.
As opposed to having everything perfect, Like I am semi-trained, but I only really use it to write myself out of holes.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm stuck on something, then I'll be like, oh, where's the ninth? Where's the seventh? And then I can gear myself out. But it starts with feeling, and then I just use the technical stuff if need be.
Yeah, I relate to that for sure.
So, but I hate, if you're going to start a song with a math equation, then fuck off.
or a structure, like,
Yeah.
here's the chorus, you have to have a verse, you have to have the bridge, you have to, like, you
Yeah.
don't have to have shit.
Yeah, you don't have to you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I also relate to your Paul story. Like, I feel like how you were with Paul and the story that you just recited is how I am with Paul Rossler.
Yeah.
Like, that situation is like what happened, but with me and Paul Rossler. And
Yeah.
I also took vocal lessons from that Paul, too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And he's cool as hell, and he was super
Super
chill. But
cool.
I did go into it thinking like, because I've seen Queen, and I'm like, these guys are fucked. Like they know so much shit. Like that guy. I mean, not that I need to feel intimidated, but like I am a little bit musically intimidated. Like I don't know, like and again, like maybe you're like this, and maybe you too, Luke. Where like I kind of just think like I like what I do, and I like what I'm part of, but I also don't have the confidence that I'm like, I'm not I'm not, you know, some people are like, my shit doesn't stink. I'm like, I kind of think like I'm the weak link of this band, or like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but whatever, it's fun, and that's why I do it. So when going in to work with Paul, I'm kind of like, dude, you know all this shit. What am I doing? Like, and he's just like, well, that's crazy that you're doing this thing, and I'm like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah, I relate to that too. But I think that's fun, and I think it does give you, like, if you're poor and you can't afford all of the nice things, I think it does give you. You might not see it at the time because you might feel like this sucks, but it does give you a certain cool, interesting personal element, and even like, do you know Geza X? Mm-hmm. He was the same way, you know what I mean? It's like interesting even if you do get technical in that way about it, where you're like wiring electronics together to make it work for you know what I mean? Like that's how cool, unique stuff happens.
Or also too, maybe the poor thing, but also just the fact that like, you know, like broken gear can, like I can't afford a new thing. So, I mean, the Locust would always do this shit where we were dependent on line 6 pedals, and so they're crappy and they break all the time. So we would go on tour and buy new ones and then fucking gut them and switch the guts and return them, but have the new working one, you know? And it was like kind of weird how we would have this, like, we'd have to figure out a way to survive, and one of them was not buying stuff from Guitar Center, you know, and then, but then it was like by for me personally, like with my bass and stuff, like by default, I ended up thinking like, you know, these things are always breaking. I have to have a backup one in case, you know, because I can't get through the set without this pedal. So I had a backup one, and then by some weird random chance, I'm like, what if I ran one pedal into the same exact pedal again? I'm like, whoa, this is some shit that like I don't know if normal people would do. And then that became like a sound, and people are like, how do you do that? And you're just like, oh, I did the wrong thing. Like line 6 doesn't tell you to buy 2 of the same one and fucking run it. Or like Mick Barr, from Orthrome, and I don't know if you know Mick Barr, but he's a guitar player that he would like run 3 Metal Zone pedals into each other, and you're like, that is like kind of absurd. Like one is bad, you know, like 3. I mean, and like, but you know, Orthrome, and also too with Orthrome, it was like guitar and drums, so there wasn't other instruments like competing, so he kind of could dominate the way the sound of the guitar was. Run through 3 Metal Zone pedals, it's just jacked up, and like that's cool. Where a lot of people I think that are normal, you know, would frown upon that. I like the fact that it's absurd. Yeah,
me too.
Okay, so your guitar stuff is obviously the weird shit, but then your vocal stuff is pretty, because the way you sing is awesome, but then you like go and sing in Prissy Whip, which is like not the most normal band either, musically speaking.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to join Prissy Whip even.
Yeah.
Well, they reached out to me, but that's why I always liked that band, of course. You know what I mean? Because of the way that they write songs and what the songs sound like, and it's a totally unique band. So when they reached out to me, I was stoked, and I knew like that if I were to just go in there and like sing regularly, it might be weird. That might be a good weird, but it might be a bad weird. And if I were to go in there and just turn it into like a hardcore band, that's also a little like, it seemed a little too on the nose for me. And then they had past singers, so like I knew what they did, and I knew I wanted to do something a little different from what they did. And like Shane was very like a talky singer, you know what I mean? And kind of limited. And Gianna was pretty limited too, but she had these kind of cool like parts, and so I picked a little bit from that because it's hard to like know. It's a hard band to sing on top of, actually.
Because the structure and the sounds, right? Yeah. Because when I would see you play, I was like, where do you fit in? The one thing I thought, not where do you fit in, but the one thing I thought when I saw you play the first time I saw you play with them, I was like, how the fuck do you write these? Because I do the previous singer. What was her name?
There is Shane and Gianna.
I think it might have been Shane, but regardless, she did have this like kind of like talky thing. Yeah. So when you did it, you approached it more like a vocalist would in a band. But I kept thinking like, how do you structurally know where to sing and then what to sing? And I was just like, wow, this is fucking bizarre in a great way, you know? Like, it was cool.
Yeah, that's what makes it hard for sure.
Like I was thinking, like I would fucking hate if they were like, all right, here's the new song and you write lyrics. I'd be like, fuck that. Like, where do I start? You know? I mean, I already have that problem with normal shit. You know, like where's the chorus? Where's the verse?
Yeah.
Do you find those in those songs? Like this is the chorus?
A little bit, but it's like it's maybe sometimes it's more as opposed to like a chorus that repeats. It's like this is like the kind of catchy part that happens once or whatever. You know what I mean? Like because they'll have. And they purposely leave space, which is in places for vocals when they think about it. But if they were to just like make the music on their own, it could be an instrumental. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so sometimes even if they pick a melody like on guitar or the bass six, and they think that would be a better vocal melody, will like work towards that. If it like sticks out in this cool way, that would be cool on vocals as opposed to like guitar or whatever. But usually I'm just like finding the spots. And sometimes when I find the spots, it's in the empty space. And sometimes it's following either the guitar or the bass, or like maybe I'm matching the drums or something like that. And I knew I wanted to incorporate sort of like a hardcore thing where it has some angst to it. But I also wanted to like pick from like Nina Hagen and like something that, and like Suburban Lawns, like, and something that where you could play with like an Essential Logic sort of like cool fun rhythm that has like a melody that you flow to, but there's also like angst in it. And then sometimes with the songs there's only so much space where it is like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna say a word here, or the instruments are doing such cool stuff that I don't want to like just muddy it with a bunch of words over it. You know, I gotta like let the instruments do its thing.
So it's almost like everybody's soloing all the time.
Yeah.
I struggle with that with Def Club. I'm like, you guys are just soloing. This is fucking crazy. Everybody.
Yeah, sometimes. Although I feel like the new songs aren't all like that. But yeah, it is like that sometimes. Which Egrets even had that sometimes. Like there will be moments where it's like the drums are soloing, the bass is soloing, the guitar is soloing. And then it's like, what's even happening right now? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean with Egrets it was always like, the saxophone seems like a normal instrument to have in music, but it also is like off-putting, I think, to people. Maybe not like you or us or whatever, but like I do think that people look at the sax and they're like, well, this isn't rock, or this isn't punk, or you know, like this is, I don't know, whatever. But when I would, the way that band approached it to me as a fan and as a listener, it was I don't know, I don't want to compare all bands that had saxophones, but like the Plot to Blow Up the Eiffel Tower, kind of the same thing. You're like, it wasn't really like saxophony for the fact that it's like that's the person's job. It was also like kind of like and I also don't want to, you know, kind of diminish the importance of it, but it wasn't like the priority or like the focal point of the band, where like normally a saxophone is going to be like, like that's the thing. There's the sax, you know.
Like, here's the sax part.
Yeah. Sax solo or whatever, you know. So I think it's cool that, and maybe that goes back to the way that people are approaching music in general, like into weird shit and noise and sounds that aren't the educated ones. Yeah. I suppose.
He would do like a pretty melodic sax part sometimes, but I feel like a lot of the time it would just be like, you know, like it's like thing, like that's just like he had a broken saxophone for most of the band, to be honest.
So because it sounded nastier, or like how was it broke?
I don't know specifically how it was broken. I think there was some notes or keys missing, but I mean, I think it was just like, I know at a show once he broke it like during a performance, and then I think he just didn't have money to fix it. Yeah. Which is
kind of all the cool shit happens like that. I think. I mean, not all the cool, but a lot of cool shit happens like that. Broken stuff. Or like I remember going like the Line 6 thing. They started making this like M13 or M16 pedal, and it was like basically like all of the different Line 6s in this big box, and everybody was kind of like, "Oh shit, this is cool." And they'd ask like people that I worked with, you know, that had that, like, how do you do it? You know, and you're like, just sit down and fucking start doing see what sounds cool. Like, why do you need to be taught? Like, just grab it and like do whatever, it sounds good. Or do what's wrong. Like, make them all the same purple or same green. Like, don't do it like normal person stuff, you know. I think that's, I don't know, to me all the greats, even like in every kind of genre, all the greats are like the weird ones, like oh, we just did this strange thing.
I think it's like going back to the classically trained, or it's like creative and technical, and those people who are very technical are very technical with music and not sound.
Yeah.
And then those people that are more on the creative side are more creative with sound and like producing this piece rather than like having notes and notes and notes and notes all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the people that need the pedals, like I see it all the time, like set it to this, 2 o'clock and then this one at 9 o'clock. And then they're going to go and play all those jazz chords.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
But they can't grasp like original sound.
Yeah.
So I think that those people, that's why they're like, tell us what to do.
Yeah.
They're going to do what you tell them to do, but then they're going to go make some math equation.
So maybe also too, it's like when you're weird, you gravitate towards other weird people. Because I remember like when I first got the ability to work with producers, I worked with Alex Newport, and that guy's, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Alex, but I think he's brilliant. And we would record stuff, like he recorded with the Locust, and then I remember that was rad. And so then I did this record, Some Girls, with him, and I remember him like putting distortion on the drums, and you're like, what the fuck, like we're paying all this money in like this really nice studio and you're just gonna add distortion to the drums, and it's all like analog and shit. It's totally ridiculous. But I was like, oh, like it kind of makes sense that like I would do that, but not deliberately. I'd probably do it because I was like broke and we had to record and everything sounded distorted because it was like shitty gear. But he has like really, like we were like in nice studios and then adding distortion. Like that's kind of rad in itself.
Yeah.
Or like I also too like working with Ross Robinson. I mean, he's produced some pretty weird stuff, but I remember like just watching him as a producer performing in a sense, like coming in and like just duct taping some shit together, and you're just like, try it now, or like making, like when Headwind City played, he made Gabe play drums on the fucking laundry machine at his house, and you're like, why, what's that, like, why are you playing the laundry machine? He's like, just try this, put the mic here and fucking drum on that, where I think like most normal people, I mean obviously like you said, like Brian Eno and stuff like that, are like, those people are on the level, but the majority of people aren't able to just go like try ridiculousness, or what could conceivably be that, and then it just sucks. Or it's like mediocre, I don't know, I mean it doesn't suck, but maybe it's mediocre.
That's also the role of like the producer too. Like the producer's like takes a band, it's like, oh, these guys have great music, and then they go and kind of shape the sound, like the Beatles, they were all great writers. And then George Martin, I'm sure it's like, oh, we're gonna put strings here, we're gonna until they started.
Well, was he the one that made him put the drums backwards? Was he like the first person that kind of discovered that? Because that was a weird thing too for that time and for that style or that size of a band. Like, let's put backwards drums.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think at that point they started experimenting with a lot of stuff.
Because I don't know how you feel about the Beatles, but I do kind of cringe when people are like, "Fuck the Beatles," or like, I mean, I don't know. I get it. I like later Beatles when they were on drugs and had mustaches and shit. Like that was like the jam. Like they were doing like cool. If they wouldn't have done all that.
Jams.
What?
I said I like some Beatle jams. I'm not like fuck the Beatles. There's some of the like really like
the standards. You're just like whatever. But when they started getting
like
weird,
too poppy, like Skip, but
the weird shit.
The weird shit.
Jam.
Yeah.
But I think like that had to happen for.
Yeah.
Whatever weird. I don't know. Anyhow, where was I going with that? The producer thing. Yeah. I'm grateful for the people that I get to work with, even with Luke.
Too.
It's so rad. Like, I feel like, again, Ross, like when we went to work with Ross Robinson, I read all these things about how he's like really fucked up and made Robert Smith cry and all this shit. Oh no, he made the guy from Korn cry, and he made Robert Smith throw his candles at him and stuff. And I was like, this is going to be terrible. Like, we're going to fucking get in a fight, And it was funny because I was expecting, I was like, oh, this guy's cool. And, like, we were recording in, like, day 2 or day 3. And I was like, when's he going to be a dick? Like, why he did all this fucked up shit to these people. And I was ready to go, and it wasn't happening. And then, like, one time he came in and he stopped us. And he was like, comes up to Gabe and he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, here we go, man. You're going to fucking go at Gabe and we're going to all just start fighting. Like, this is,
camera on.
Yeah, don't yell at Gabe right now, And Gabe was like, what? Like, he was like, whoa, you're calling me out? He's like, what are you doing? He's like, and you could tell Gabe was like trying to figure out where to go. He was like, what is this? I don't understand what he's asking me. And he wasn't saying like, what are you doing? Like, why are you fucking up? He was saying like, let yourself fuck up. Like, what are you doing? Just fuck it up. Like, just fuck it up and don't get mad. Just fuck everything up.
Yeah.
And then something beautiful will come of that. And I'm just like, who are you, dude? He's like he's very woo woo and like, and that kind of shit. And I think that really helps. But it was crazy because I never expected that. I thought everyone would be like, we got to get this done. You're in the studio, you're paying. Like, we got to get it done by the books.
Yeah.
And he was just like, do whatever you want.
That's cool.
Yell at you for having notes. Like, get your notes out of here, But I'm just glad I didn't have to throw my candles at him.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was something on their end.
No, it was. I asked him about those. I was like, so why weren't you a dick to us? And he was like, you guys are all, like, I forgot the word he used, but basically he was like, you're not, like, seasoned, but he was like, you guys are all, like, and not hard. I don't know what the word was, but, like, because I think with Robert Smith, he was saying, like, he was getting comfortable, and he was trying to push him to get out of the comfortable space to fucking write, I don't know, Boys Don't Cry or whatever, like, he was just, like, phoning it in. And he's like, no, like, fuck you, like, let me piss you off. You're Robert Smith. Give me the goods, Yeah. And so with us, he was just like, you guys are already just like on that. You guys are already like raging and pissed and whatever
That's
we were.
Cool.
He was like, you just created this thing on your own. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, I guess.
Also, Robert Smith throwing candles is just really funny.
Well, I think the corn thing, I was like, well, why'd you make that guy cry? And he's like, dude, they were all on meth and shit like that, and they like signed to like whatever. They're like I don't know, being like on meth and rich probably seems like a really bad combination. Like, let me try to make some music. I'm fucking super rich and fucked up.
Yeah.
Like the weakest, dirtiest drug.
Yeah.
We got money. Let's do this.
and not make a record or whatever.
Yeah. Plus, let's face it, like, a lot of musicians are hard to deal with.
I think maybe that's true, yeah. But why do you think that is? Maybe because we're all jacked up in some way, like wired wrong or something?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a good collection of humanity, even outside of musicians, that are just people that are seemingly, quote-unquote, hard to deal with because of whatever they have going on in their lives. But, like, to be an artist, I think it takes a certain type of person, you know what I mean? Like, even Bowie had a good quote that he says about, like, why, like, people being artists. He's like, you have to be somewhat crazy to be an artist, otherwise why wouldn't you just, like, do a job where it's gonna put bread on the table?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to be somewhat kind of fucking crazy to, like, dive into this world of doing a thing that's, like, not even it might not take care of you, in your life. Yeah.
Or what was I think, like, I forgot what Weasel Walter said, but he was saying, he's like, I don't want to think of doing music for fun. Like, I want to do it for survive. Like, I don't think he said survival, but kind of like that. Like, it's not like I do this for. I mean, it is fun. I enjoy it, but there's something else happening where you like have to do it for whatever reason, to communicate or to expel or to be a revolutionary or whatever your angle is,
for sure.
So that is kind of an interesting point, like, because you think about music, like, I want to jam. I'm gonna jam because it's fun, and I want to play music because, like, it's fun, and I'm gonna make money. It's like I never thought I would be. I mean, I still don't make money, and it isn't always fun, but I have to do it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I think it's because, like, maybe it is because we're wired weird or something, and not even a musician. It's, again, artist, because I do think, like, there's a bigger picture. It is broader than just musicianship. It's all kinds of strange folks that create stuff artistically. Yeah.
I think there is something that, like, it gives you, like, for me particularly, like, when I started to do more of, like, makeup stuff, because that's what, like, gives me money, and, like, I'm able to get things that I want in life in a material sense from that job, which is still artistic, and it gives me something to, like, I get something from that artistically as well. But there's something, like, I could tell with music that is different, like, and I lack something when I'm just doing makeup stuff. Like, I can, like, cut loose of everything when I'm doing music, like, especially if I'm on stage. I could, like, act like the craziest part of myself,
which I've seen you do.
Which I have somewhere in me, like, that I don't let out anywhere else in the world, because I'll be, like, reserved or whatever it is.
Well, when you're doing, I mean, you're the one, but, like, obviously when you're performing, it's a performance. When you're doing makeup, you're trying to, it's like almost like the rehearsal room or the recording studio. You're making the canvas happen.
Yeah. Like, you're making something and you're also around people that you can't just be like, you're around people that you have to kind of be professional in front of, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But with musicians, or like playing music, it's a performance, so you are being theatrical, and it is a thing.
Yeah.
Where
and it's a cool thing that you could tap into that I can't necessarily tap into anywhere else, you know what I mean? And it's like a good release, like a release of all like built up shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we live in a society that's like it's no wonder why people have so much fucking anxiety, because it's like, look at the world, you know what I mean? Like, I go into deprivation tanks sometimes.
Oh, nice.
And when you get out of those, like, what I notice is just like how maddening everything is. Like, you're deprived of things for like a few hours. Like, there's no sound. You have feelings from like the water and floating or whatever, you know what I mean? But you're deprived of a lot of sensory things. So when I go back out into the world, like, I went to a grocery store one time right when I got out, and it was just, you hear there was someone like outside like yelling about Trump, and then there's like ching 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 like cash register sounds, and all these people talking, and everything's moving fast, everyone has somewhere to go, people are like rude to the other person and blah blah blah, and it's like, no wonder everyone has like crippling anxiety for the most part, and they have to like do things to like work through feeling anxious and like depressed and shit, because it's like you live in this place that's so wired in this like way where I feel like if you have something that you could tap into that's like an escape from that, and also like I have all these feelings and resentments towards fucking so and so, but I can't necessarily tell them to their face because then I'd be an ass, but I can write a song about it and yell about it, and no one knows that this is like where it's spawning from, but it's like a good, like, I could release that emotion through it, you know? So I don't know how we started talking about this, but I love music for that fucking reason.
But okay, so you do makeup. Can you explain? Because it's, I mean, to, I guess, people hearing this are probably like, what, makeup what? I mean, because some of the shit I've seen is like next level.
Yeah, like special effects. You mean special effects makeup? Yeah. Like prosthetics makeup, and is what it's in special effects makeup, and then along with like beauty makeup, like I do all of that. But when you do it for a living, you're doing it to create whatever characters are written in whatever stories for whatever show or movie that it is. So, you know, if you have an alien based story and you got to make the aliens, and so you create what those species might look like, and then you make the prosthetics, and they hire creature actors or just actors and actresses, but creature actors are like a specifically cool type of human. They're like the most like meditative cool people to work with, and like the way that they like move their body and like study how like, how do I, like, I'm a human thing, but I'm also a type of animal thing, and like, how would an alien move? I don't know, you know what I mean? You have to like, it's kind of a cool creative thing to like make up, and then we, you know, create the looks of them.
Oh, so it's not like someone's like, here's this sketch of what this person needs to look like, or make this.
Sometimes it depends.
But sometimes you can just be like, I'm gonna create some fucked up thing, and
like sometimes you have creative brain, or you have writers or directors that have already thought about it a little bit, so and then you just like create it together.
So maybe it's like going and being a hired gun in a studio, play my song, or create the song for me, right? I guess is that how we can equate it?
Yeah.
Do they let you, I mean, if it was for a show or movie or anything, do they let you read the script and kind of be like, go with what you feel? Oh, that's rad.
Can you impress us with something? Well, you know, you talked about like some of the stuff you can't talk about, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't want to bring up the one thing that you told me earlier, which I was very impressed. But there's something of that level where I'm like, what the fuck, that we could talk about?
Yeah, like I helped, because it's been released, I could talk about it. I helped with, like, you know, those American Horror Story promos, like the billboards and stuff like that with the aliens, the alien, and like it's like a vampire type of character, and there's one of them like making out with the pill. There's like a pill involved on their tongues.
That was up across the gas station over here, I believe.
Oh, that was that with the pill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I helped with those.
Fuck?
Yeah, so like I was mostly on vampire duty, like the pale people, but and then they had like a separate section of the people that were doing the aliens. But when I was done with the vampires, because the aliens took so long, because a lot of them were full body, I'd go help with the aliens too. But I think I could talk about that. I already did, so whatever. But
no one listens to our podcast.
I know, it's whatever. Like
us
those
three.
people, like the people that hired me, definitely aren't listening
Okay.
to this. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's already over. It's already out,
Yeah.
and it's like I wasn't like the department head on it, but I was helping create all those looks. I didn't design the looks, but I applied them. So, but that was a really cool project to be a part of, because it's cool to see your work everywhere when you're fucking driving around, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? On a huge fucking billboard, and you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's prosthetic work too, so it's not just like making a pretty face, it's like these aliens that were really cool looking, and like, I mean, those jobs can be intense, like that job particularly, because it's like print mixed with also sort of like union media stuff, but because it was like a combination of the both, it was just like set up in this way where you're working to just get everything done, and there's so much content that needed to get done that we were there for really long hours. Like I'd get there at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. was always call time, and sometimes I'd get out at like 2 a.m. and have to be back at 6 a.m. So
Whoa.
on top of like you're making these aliens and creatures and stuff that you have to look fucking amazing, because it's like it's huge fucking
Yeah.
project. It's a big deal. Lots of people love it. You know what I mean? You're like delusional, like on the lack of sleep, like trying to drink caffeine to like keep you alive.
But that would be like I don't know. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel my like normal people jobs that I've had, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna fucking cashier at this co-op, this and deal with people. Like I can't
Yeah.
like still just, even though you had like jacked up hours and you were losing your shit,
Yeah.
you still like were able to kind of be creative and be around creative people. Where I felt like
Yeah.
I'm like I don't know, or I guess I understand in a sense. Like my last like job was at this gay club, and I was a bar back, and that part was life sucking. Like I fucking hate like hanging out at bars and hearing like EDM for the entire time, just shit music. But it was like the absurdity was what kind of kept me there. Obviously
Yeah.
getting paid in cash was cool too, but the absurdity was like, oh, these are weirdos too, and like I can kind of get through my shift because it makes me, I was inspired, and where I think like most people have jobs where they're just like, where it's just life sucking, and you're like, this
Yeah,
sucks.
it's true. I'm grateful for where I am with like all my creative type of jobs, and I'm grateful to be paid like money now that I could live off of for a creative job. It's a lucky spot to be in. Like they all have things that come with them that are negative. It's like the types of people that are in the industry. It can be pretty ugly.
Like total jerks, right? Like just freaking
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and just like it could just be dark and heavy, like
Yeah.
the way that people can treat you, and like when there's more money involved and stuff and prestige, like it can, and things are kind of competitive, like people get really ugly towards each other, and when you see that, and you're just like, oh man, this sucks, you know? But there's always like a group of people that don't like that, and they're aware of it and they know it, and I feel like those people kind of gravitate and find each other, and then you luck out when you get into a place where you're doing something that you love, that's really creative, you're making money, and you're around a bunch of cool people. That's the jackpot, But you have to sift through all the crap in order to find it. And I have found it a bit, but like because I just got into the union like a few years ago. I think it's been like 3, maybe 4 now. So I'm still like finding my people in a sense, you know what I mean? There's still a lot of like not so friendly people that I have to deal with.
Do the two worlds ever collide? Like, are people like, I don't know, when you're working on American Horror Story, they're like, wait, you play in this band? Like, what the fuck?
Actually, which is always really cool. Well, there's a lot of musicians that are makeup artists, actually. Like people that used to be in big bands that are makeup artists. And then like effects artists especially. And then I've been on set sometimes where people recognize me from music, which is cool. And you're just around a lot of artists that like are musicians too, or like that like music. So when you tell them like, oh, I'm a musician too, they'll be like, whoa, and then they'll support you and like buy your stuff, and so, and it's one of my like dreams to get some of my music in films, and like I would even like to write a score at some point in my life, you know, like, so it would be cool if one day it collided that way too, where it's like, you know, I helped with makeup on a show, but one of my songs is also like the intro, you know what I mean, for like the like the beginning of the show, you know. Yeah.
That's the jam.
Yeah.
Getting that spot.
Yeah, it's cool. I would love to do that.
Who are the worst jerks? Like the directors, the producers, actors?
I think it varies. It's like sometimes it could be the actors, but like most of the time I feel like most actors and actresses that I've met have been pretty cool. And usually they're like dealing with their own thing that they got going on, you know what I mean? And they're kind of like in their head a little bit, and you're just like the makeup room could be kind of like, it's also like the therapy room, you know, where they're like complaining about everyone else on set, and we're like, you know, but almost
like a hairstylist, like when you go get your hair cut, you just talk shit all the time.
Yeah. But I definitely worked with some shitty directors and shitty producers that like take total advantage of people to save money foreseeably, or just like directors that talk to people like in the industry they call it like below the line, like they talk to you like you're just a worker, you know, like you aren't anywhere near them, like you're beneath them, sort of like condescending, like talk to you in that type of way. But there's also really cool people out there that, like, they know that what they're creating wouldn't happen if it wasn't for the whole team, so they treat everyone with respect, too. So, but, you know, everyone has different personalities, so, but sometimes, like, I have compassion for directors, because when you're the director of something and you have a crew of people, and it might feel like nobody really gives a fuck about your project, and they're just showing up to get a paycheck, and like they're all fucking off and eating snacks, and you're like trying to create a thing, and you need to like, you might feel like you need to be like the stern person that like keeps the ship running to like create this thing that you have pressure on you from producers for it to be amazing or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I feel compassion for that, but
maybe you have a different perspective too, because like being a musician and working on a different level, and also working on a level that's like you're not the director of a band, you know, you're in a band, which is, you know, conceivably you're all equals, so you're like, we have to work as a unit, so like maybe that applies to other things. Because I do wonder about that, like our knowledge of working with other people in other parts of life, like it's like being in a band's like being in a relationship with 4 people, you know, and you have to all get along really well, so apply it to whatever other part of life, and maybe it works better for you. Maybe you're more able to navigate better than someone else. I
think there is something cool too with like when you're making music with people, there's kind of like a rawness there, like you have to kind of like get into this place of, I don't know, maybe you have to get comfortable real quick or something, because you're like doing this thing that could be like slightly embarrassing, you know, like, and you have to like and like put your feelings out there and shit like that. Like it's making music with people, and that relationship that happens with music, it's like, it's a really cool special thing that I feel like when in comparing it with like some people in the industry, it could feel more surface level, like in the film industry, and a little bit more like the music world has this element of fakeness to it too, or it could, but I feel like it's like kind of times 10 in the film industry with some people, you know? Because people like try really hard to like be a certain way or seem a certain way or look a certain way in order to like achieve more, you know? And they're just like really like, it's as much as like music can be an addiction in a way, there's also like, it's the same thing in the film industry where people get really addicted to like climbing the ladder and like social climbing, and like they want to get, when you get like a taste of the big jobs, like they're like, oh, I just worked on fucking Predator, and like you want to fucking tell everyone and be like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like you stick your nose up at people and be like, oh yeah, I worked on Predator, you know, and then you like want like the next fucking big thing, and then like and like I said, like some people will just tear other people down in order to even get that.
Well, I mean, I wonder too, like about if you can equate film and music, because there's things like, a good example would be, well, you know, people that don't get it. Okay, so like I'll tell someone, you know, like The Smell. Like, everyone's like, what? You're playing a place called The Smell? And you're like, you don't understand. Like that place is nothing like that energy that happens there happens nowhere else. It happens at like the smells of like the Che in San Diego or like Gilman Street or whatever. Yeah, but like you don't get it, and that's fine. But like there's something that happens that you can't manufacture, and I think that that's important. And I wonder, because some people would never even like a musician wouldn't even, I'm not gonna play there, like whatever, like I'm not gonna play a junky or house show, like fuck. There's people that like have never played house shows. I'm like, dude, that's the craziest shit.
Yeah, it's like one of the better things to play.
I mean, or like a good example. We were talking earlier about the LA River shows. Like I was with my grandmother and my aunt and uncle last week, and I was like, I gotta go home back to San Diego because I'm playing a show, and I'm like, I probably shouldn't even tell them this. I'm like, I'm playing a show in the LA River, and they're like, what? And they're always like, well, is it? How are you getting paid a lot? I'm like, no, it's free. Like, and they can't understand why you're doing it, and you're like, no, there's something. There's a bigger picture to it,
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that happens in film. I mean, there are like the DIY elements of film.
Yeah.
But maybe on a different level. I mean, you think about like the start of what John Waters did or something that seemed like very punk rock,
of course.
And
DIY
or Trauma or what, like those kind of film houses or whatever they're called,
Yeah.
So do you see them as the same sort of?
Yeah, I mean, that does exist in the film world for sure. It happens more in like the non-union world, I think. Like, and sometimes that has like a good, like I spent a month in the Arctic on a film.
Whoa.
And it wasn't like a big time union film, but it was like a director and producer that I really liked as people, and they wanted it was a beautiful place in the world that I would never go to on my own, that I got to see, and it had like great production value because it was an abandoned coal mine, and it was a cool like thriller story, and these are just like creative people that like want to get together with other cool creative people on an adventure and do this thing in the middle of the fucking Arctic for a month,
Yeah.
So, and when you're a part of something like that, it has its difficulties and stuff, and like, everyone like wants to get paid, but like I even did that for not that much money, like barely what I'm making now, but I did it for the adventure,
Fuck yeah.
So that still exists, and some artists are cool with that, and other artists are like, fuck no, like if I'm gonna spend a month in the middle of the Arctic, you better like pay me big time, you know what I mean? Which I understand too. But
I mean, I'll probably go to the Arctic for free. If you're gonna take me there, like I'll go. And, like, I'll do the work.
I'll learn how to do makeup on the plane. It's a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. There's like, you couldn't walk around anywhere without having like a Russian local with a shotgun follow you because of polar bears and stuff.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. Like, I'm super glad I experienced that.
And then at some point, do you ever be like, let me score this, or check out my band and put it on the soundtrack or something?
Yeah.
Can you?
Like I wrote that trip particularly was so inspiring that I wrote a song about it. Like while I was there, there's also not much to do when you weren't working. Like we didn't have internet, TVs, anything. So they like, I forget how it happened, but at one point in time on a boat, they shipped in a guitar and I got to play it. Because at one point I reached kind of a maddening point of like, fuck, does anyone have like cards or a fucking board game? Like, I don't drink or anything. And that was the only thing they were doing if we weren't working, you know?
Yeah.
So it was like, I was writing music there, and I wrote a song like inspired by the place that I was in and the experience, and I sent it to like the director and the producers and stuff like that, and they liked it, but they went like a different way with like with the film. They went like a different way with the music, and they hit me up about it once, like, hey, is this song done, or when will it be done? And the person that I was making the song with at the time, I told him like, hey, they're interested, we should finish it, you know? But he was like, that has its own story to it.
Okay.
And he just like was doing his own thing and I think didn't want to finish it.
Yeah.
So it just never got finished. But, you know, and that might work out one day for me. Like there might be a situation where they like my music and they take it, you know, which would be really cool.
You have to be like open to even putting it out there, right? I mean, I guess like, hey, check this out. I mean, that seems weird. Like I always hate trying to like sell myself, I guess, you know, like, hey, will you listen to my band? I mean, it just seems a little desperate, you know?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, because Luke and I helped score part of a film, and I was in, and so I was acting in it, and I would never have felt comfortable. But one of the people, I forgot what he did it. I forgot what his job was, and I feel bad. Like I don't want to disrespect like the industry, but like he did something. He wasn't the director or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like, and it was the craziest thing because out of all the stuff he could have like recognized me for, he was like, "Oh, you were in this band Struggle," and I was like, "When I was 15, like what, and everybody was kind of like, "Oh, you're in a band," and like that presented itself, and then so I felt comfortable saying like, "Hey, can my friend and I take a stab at scoring the film?" And we got to score part of it, But
cool.
if that wouldn't have happened, I probably would never have felt like it would never have come up, the topic of it,
Yeah.
in front of everybody, and it was like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a like my label that I'm on now with my solo stuff. Like one of the people there kind of threw in the idea of like, can you take CDs with you to set and like give them out to people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it feels so like
on like
used car salesman.
That's the label trying to.
I know, but it makes
working,
sense.
yeah,
Like
totally.
fuck.
Yeah, and I just don't think like on some of the bigger sets that I'm on now, I just don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I think it'll present itself eventually if it's something that you want.
yeah.
Go make friends with the music supervisor.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
the jam.
And I mean, the label that I'm on, like, we have like someone that sends our music to a publishing, like music supervisors and stuff. So maybe that will work out on its own, without me having to do anything. That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you develop relationships with producers and directors and stuff like that, like, that has its own opportunity to open doors for that too. So yeah, we'll see.
It's funny when the doors are open and you're like, and it's the opposite. You're like, I don't want to be in your, like, I don't want to mention the person that hit me up, but I was like, dude, I cannot have a song in your movie. It is not, it's like super offensive. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. The one opportunity you get is for like,
you're like, really? You're calling me about this? And I'm like, and your movie's called what? And it's about what? And I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no way. But I guess it's still cool that, I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
It's cool too when you think about some of the films that like musicians have been in. Like there's like of course the ones with like Tom Waits and Iggy Pop and stuff like that, but even like the Birthday Party, in like Wings of Desire and stuff like that. Like there is a cool relationship between film and music. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course. Also, too, I think like the musicians are inherently performers, so they might be able to articulate in that sense.
Yeah.
I remember like
like
when I was acting, and they're like, do this thing, like smash this thing, and like cry, and I was like, I mean, it was hard to cry, but like it was really easy to like break shit and like and they're like, oh, you're bleeding. I'm like, it's cool, like I'll be fine, but I wanted to break it and make it seem legit, and they're like, yeah, but you're bleeding, and I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't matter, you got it on film, it's great. We're good, let's move on. Or like working with someone on that side of film, it's kind of like music where you're like, they're like, that was great, and you're like, no, I could do that better. What the hell are you talking about? Let me try that again. Or like if you do a take or a vocal take and you're like, no, that was shitty.
Yeah.
I don't know, like when Luke and I are recording and I'll do a vocal take and I'll question it, but I can see his body language and I'm like, oh, somehow I did that right because he seems like he's into it. Normally I would be like, fuck that. But people hear it differently or see it differently.
Yeah.
I suppose. Cool. Do you want to like mention anything, or what do you got going on, or like how? I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, we'll obviously talk about like the stuff you're doing in your relevant projects, but like, I don't know. You always have crazy, strange stuff happening. So what's next for you? I mean, I don't want to say post-pandemic because we're still in the pandemic, but it seems like you're gearing up for at least the new Prissy Whip record. You said.
Yeah. Prissy Whip is writing new songs that I'm really stoked on. And if everything with COVID, like if venues are still open, hopefully there'll be more shows in the future. But even like what I was talking to you about earlier with like releasing my solo project and doing a show for that, like a release show for that, I really want that to happen because I have so many what I think are cool ideas to achieve it and stuff that I feel like isn't happening a lot, like in our particular like scene or whatever it is you want to call it. And I don't know, it might be for like the sort of punkier people that are like into the things that I do, it might throw them off a bit. But I don't really care because I'm just like way more open-minded of a musician than like, you know, only doing like punk or hardcore, you know what I mean? Like there's so much more music that I like and appreciate. So like I'm really looking forward to doing a release show with my solo stuff and putting on like a fucking show. And like I was mentioning to you, like incorporating like choirs and like charities and messing around with the instrumentation, because a lot of the stuff that I did on my solo album was like me experimenting with like foreign objects as instruments. So now that it's becoming a thing where it's a live show, it's like, are they samples, or are we, what actual instruments are we going to use? Or like, and I even want like, with the drummer who's going to be doing live drums, he's going to have samples too, and he's really great at that, which is cool. And I even want some songs to have like fucking tribal bongo like drum beats, you know, like a line of drummers with just because there's so much percussion in it that just like make the percussion sound really big and alive. And like if you were to have that and like a fucking choir and just like the shit, it just sounds like has so much cool energy, and I hope it happens and exists. But I don't know how, you know, easy it's like when you get more and more people involved, like the harder it can be because it's like wrangling cats.
Yeah.
Or
also
like
paying a choir.
Yeah, if people want to get paid. Yeah.
It's one thing if your other 4 bandmates or 3 bandmates, you're like, we're not getting paid, okay? We're gonna do this. And like, they're like, hey,
you just paid the choir?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, you know you're not gonna make any money with that, right?
No, if anything, it would be like an investment and probably a loss.
Yeah.
But just because I want to have like the experience,
Sure.
if I can make it cool, I would do it. You know.
Go to a college. Find like the college choir. They'll probably do it for free.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I started to look into like charity based choirs, and then making it a benefit show, like paying them, and then also they get like the profits. And there's a lot of cool ones that exist that, you know, are doing a lot with just helping people. So it would be cool to incorporate that. But there's also a choir that I found in LA that like plays with local bands, and I was like, that's interesting. So I asked them if they wanted to do it, and then we'll see what they say. And then also if that doesn't work out, like if I could get like a line of, like I know so many singers that are friends that maybe they would just want to do it, you know. But there's a lot of like vocal, like sometimes the vocals are the percussive element. So it would be really cool if that was happening live with actual people. Like there's a song that's just like ha 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 ha, that's happening throughout like the whole time. And if that was happening live with actual voices, I think it could be really fucking cool. As opposed to like just me and 2 other people and like a laptop or whatever, you know, which is fine too, and will probably happen sometimes. Like if I'm realistically gonna play this show
at the Smell
numerous times,
yeah,
I can't have this whole fucking production. You know what I mean? But because it's like my first time like being solo, and it's my project, and it's the release, and it's the first time people see it. Like I want it to be like a cool deal, you know. So I hope that happens. I have that on the horizon. I'm trying to make it happen.
Oh, that's great.
For some reason, like I can't. When it comes to like release shows, I don't know why. Like it's hard for me to do things simple sometimes. When it's like we're like releasing a thing, and I'm excited. The Egrets LP, when we released it, I did a whole art installation in a building. You know what I mean? To like make it like a release show. Like there's that part of me that like I think it's because I have played so many shows. People make jokes because it's like egrets, it's like we're playing every fucking night, and it's like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean, like we're playing in the bathroom tomorrow night or whatever. Like I forget. So like there's jokes that people tell me about it, but it's like, you know,
have you ever played a show in a bathroom?
No, I haven't.
It's terrible because it's all usually tiled, so it just the sound is terrible.
Yeah, makes sense. But because I've like played so many bars, and it's probably like why also outside of the energy, like why we like house shows and shit like that, and like DIY shit, and like playing in the LA River, because it's like, how many times are you gonna play a bar or the same venue? You know what I mean? So I think there's that part of me that just wants to do like something different, because it's like, I don't know, because you can, you know,
to make the energy happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, oh, this is what we do. We see the band at the bar.
Yeah, like, yeah, it happens, like, it's so repetitive, you know?
Yes, I do know. All right, cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a long time. How
Yeah.
long has it been?
Colton Culture is proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices.
Planet B.
Colton Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast, proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Fender, and Diodario.
Planet B.